please, try to give us something that is reminiscent of your glory days.
I remember the buzz around this thing. It was out there everywhere.
When I
Yeah.
think back to those years, well, usually I was drunk.
It is like one of the more catchy songs. It's like a Here I Go Again.
Chips Enuff is a weird cat, and I've met Chips Enuff a bunch of times.
People knew they were back when Promises was released, and they were really happy about that.
And there's a big Hanoi Rocks poster, and there's a big Michael. What the fuck? How do I work my thumbs?
It's no hysteria, but it's harking back to where they should have been.
W.A.S.P is right up my fucking alley with their gritty, sleazy, disgusting, greasy, grimy hard rock.
Oh, cheaters. I know this song. This was supposed to be from 92.
Fuck it. In 98, we're doing a hair metal album.
You can't miss when you have the IA at the end.
Oh, fuck. That dude is like the hottest chick ever.
Even you guys playing it is weird. Like,
You have Reb Beach here. Why are you not kicking out the jams, motherfucker?
but it's great. What an innocent time.
And Shadow Life did not work. It was a shadow piece of shit.
And they both had Turn Up the Radio, The Right to Rock, and then they just went, and we don't know why.
And it encourages people to get fucked up. And in 1999, I was all about getting fucked up.
Sounds very politically correct. I like it.
Look, I came here to do two things: chew bubblegum and talk hair metal. And it looks like I'm almost out of bubblegum. Welcome to the Hair Metal Guru. My name is Anthony. They call me the Guru. And today, my good buddy Ryan is here. And it's good that he's here because I need the moral support, because we are going to be talking about a dark fucking time in hair metal, 1996 to the year 2000. Ryan, welcome back to the show.
Well, thank you very much. Happy to be here. I swear I have a home. I'm not always at this place, but at least I put up some decorations this time.
There you go. There you go. So,
dude,
tell me your thoughts.
I always find a way to make these years killer,
Yeah.
dude. It's just, I feel like it doesn't matter. It's the never-ending genre in the heyday. Some real winners came out of these really odd time periods. And man, I feel like my list is strong, and I got some honorable mentions that I feel bad not mentioning, but it's okay. There's a lot of good stuff.
Yeah. And I feel good about my list. I wonder, because you associate the music that you love with a period in your life. Now, my 1996 to 2000 most was shit. That's where everything was falling apart. So there's definitely some good music, but I mean, I'm not being all Debbie Downer about it. It's all good, but just when I think back to those years, well, usually I was drunk and passed out. So, anyway, got my list, and there's some really solid stuff, but I will also say, it's not like these are the greatest years in musical history, but there is some decent stuff. And
you got to kind of do this and search for them versus the everything up to like 92, like you were saying, is just like you could throw a rock and hit something good, and here you got to really search for it.
Fuck yes. So, before we get into it, hey, if you like this stuff, would love it if you like, subscribe, what the hell, ring the bell, give us comments, all that shit apparently helps the algorithm. So I just appreciate you being here regardless of what you do. So I was gonna show some frame stuff. I had a Skid Row item, but then I saw that Ryan has his AC/DC The Razor's Edge tapestry that is behind him. And I remember this bad boy. This is an original, the lighting sucks, but an original ad from 1990 for Thunderstruck single. And it says, "Get Thunderstruck, the first track and video from the long-awaited Atco release, The Razor's Edge." So, and this is a huge song in Fargo, because the biggest sports team in Fargo, where I live, is the North Dakota State University Bison, the college football team. Like, they're Division I, but they're like FCS division, which I don't know shit about what that means. But anyway, they've won like a bunch of national championships at the level below the normal. So anyway, they're very big, but they're called the Thundering Herd. And whenever they come out for games, Thunderstruck plays, and it's like the crowd goes freaking nuts. So anyway, kind of a
Awesome.
kind of a cool thing. So
Very
all right. And hey, I really enjoyed putting
Mhm.
together my 1993 to 1995 list that I did with you. This one, I'll be honest, was a little bit more painful, but I finally got her done about an hour ago, so I'm anxious to hear what you got. With that being said, let's get started. What is your number 10 album from 96 to 2000?
All right. Well, thanks. So my first one is from 1998, and it's a band called The Snakes. So The Snakes was the best 80s Whitesnake album that Whitesnake never released.
Okay.
it's it's the ex early 80s Whitesnake members in Mick Moody and Bernie Marsden, and they put together a Whitesnake clone band. It's a perfect balance of that early 80s and the perfect AOR early 90s that could have been. And the singer is Jorn Landy. He's the one that went on to be a huge solo artist, and he's a European vocal giant. The guy's got a fantastic voice, looks like a Viking. But we always talk about like the clone bands, like the Dirty Looks, Rhino Bucket, Crocus, and people kind of bag on it or whatever. Like this actually fooled me. I stumbled upon it. Metal Mike was having me look at something else on Spotify, and this was suggested, and I clicked on it and I went, "Holy shit! A Coverdale album that I don't know. Is this some revamped '70s shit that I don't even know about or whatever?" And then I did some digging, and it's Jorn, and he does Coverdale like he's batting 1,000, dude. Like
Really?
down to the pronunciation. So the songs are strong as shit. If you're yearning for more Whitesnake, this should have been and would have been like a perfect release for when Restless Heart came out in '97.
Right.
This was also produced by Ronnie Letecro of TNT fame.
Yep.
So I really highly suggest this. It's for Whitesnake fans like we are. It's clone Whitesnake, and if you look at a live video on YouTube, he pulls it off live. It's crazy.
So they toured it. I mean, it's a lot
They
of
must have.
work.
There's an official 1998 live album release as well,
Okay.
and they obviously do some old Whitesnake,
Yeah.
but they play like everything from this album called Once Bitten. It's kind of a generic like cartoon illustrated snake, um, but it is absolutely insane how much this guy sounds like Coverdale.
So the band is called The Snakes, and I maybe what's the album called?
Once Bitten, and it's all original. It's not revamped
Right.
70s, early 80s Whitesnake. Live, they do some reference to Whitesnake, obviously, but this album is all original
Right.
stuff, and it is like I said, like it's what you may have wanted out of a early 90s, kind of getting into this past 93 era of
Okay.
Whitesnake. It's
Okay.
really solid. So I'm really glad that I found it.
For some reason, I think I've heard of it, but
I just did, like I said, like within the last year, and I had never heard it before and never even heard of it. I knew Jorn and
yeah.
I knew the guys from ex Whitesnake members. So if people out there have never heard of it and they're yearning for more Whitesnake, this is really it.
And those two guys, they're from the earlier period, early 80s White Snake, right? When they were kind of a little
Yeah,
bit more bluesy, but
yeah,
still.
yeah.
Okay, well shit. Now I'm really intrigued because I'm sure I've never listened to that. So okay.
No.
All right. Well, there's a new one on me. So
Yeah,
awesome.
well, me too.
Cool. Yeah, sounds good. I'm gonna check that out. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Good call. My number 10. Okay. You knew that if I could find a way to fit fucking Lillian Axe in, I was going to. And I remembered that they had put out an album called Fields of Yesterday. I didn't remember. Well, it had come out in 1999. So here's how amped I was on Lillian Axe back in the day when I finally got, because I got Poetic Justice right away. I got Psychoschizophrenia right away. But it was super hard to find copies of the self-titled and Love and War. Like you would find them on this is back before, or like right at the beginning of the internet. So
Yeah.
they would be in like magazines. You could buy them from overseas for like 40 or $50,
Yeah.
some shit like that. Well, so then all of a sudden in the magazines, I start reading like, and these are like from Europe, and they're saying, hey, unreleased Lillian Axe album. And apparently it's all unreleased tracks from like 89 to 92, from the Love and War to Poetic Justice time frame. So I eventually, like, and I was always nervous to like send fucking money overseas and be like, all right, they're gonna send me this cassette. I'm like, I'm probably gonna get screwed. But I was
Mm.
so desperate to get anything related to Lillian Axe that I finally bought it. So it is very solid. It's songs that didn't make the album, but it's still Ron Taylor on vocals, Steve Blaze on guitar and writing the songs. So there is some really solid shit in here. Death Valley Days, the opening track, is very good. The Last Time, Pulling the Rats Out, and you can kind of tell that some of the stuff was at the end of the 80s and some of the stuff was right before psychoschizophrenia, because you can get the two senses of those albums on there. So anyway, it's a really solid release from Lillian Axe, and it's still got Ron Taylor on vocals. So however you can get Lillian Axe in your life, I highly recommend it.
Love this album. I think my choice was Crying Out Loud. That's
Okay.
the one on
Yep.
there,
Yep.
I believe. Yeah. And I thought it was like a pseudo best of without putting any of the, I don't know, like not the non, like how could these be cutting room floor songs?
Right.
It's
Exactly.
unbelievable. These songs are great. This is one of my favorite Lillian albums.
Yeah. It sounds like just another Lillian album. It doesn't sound like, oh, cutting room floor, these songs suck, they never could have made an album. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's my number 10. How about
Good.
how about your number 9? What do you got?
Yeah, here's where I got Unruly Child from 1998. And this was the really good follow up to the 92 classic, which I love. But this one featured Kelly Hansen replacing the amazing Mark Free. I still prefer Kelly to Hurricane, but he's like who I would choose if I were in charge of picking Mark Free's fill in. I would choose Kelly Hansen. It's the perfect fit. Check out songs Heart Run Free and Rise Up. You could tell those are like very 80s true to form. Do You Ever Think of Me is like perfect AOR. And the first 4 or 5 songs, I would say probably are leftovers from the Unruly Child 92 release.
Yep.
And probably some leftovers, but like I said, if people forgot or didn't even know that Kelly Hansen fronted Unruly Child for a period of time, I would definitely check out the album. I know it's streaming on Spotify, and it's on YouTube. I have the CD; it's really cool, and it won't disappoint at all.
So I was just listening shit yesterday to the 92 Unruly Child
Yeah,
album, because I haven't really given that a bunch of time, but you've been talking about it, and
yeah,
so I popped it on. It's very pop rock,
yeah,
very mellow. But if you like some mellow shit, which I like, you're gonna get into that. So it's no wonder that people talk about it in glowing terms. But I've
yeah.
never heard that album before. And I
Oh,
didn't know that Kelly Hansen sang on an Unruly Child album. So now
great.
I'm
Yeah.
okay. All right. So shit, you're throwing me for a bunch of loops here, and I got something in my fucking eye. Sorry. Okay. So all right, here's Ridley.
That's what it is.
Yeah,
Doc-
yeah, it's my dog shit. You got dog shit in my eye. And he
Ridley was checking on you.
keeps taking my socks outside, aren't you? Don't you? You're very naughty. Why you do that? Yeah. You're very nice, you're very pretty, and you're very famous on YouTube. Okay, why don't you go down? Okay. All right. Okay. My number 9. Damn, you're gonna hear some shit you've never heard me talk about today. There'll be a couple things that I've mentioned in the past, but maybe I don't think this guy's ever come up solo. We've talked about his biggest band before, Van Halen, but I'm talking about Sammy Hagar, with
Yeah.
Red Voodoo. And this came out in 99. And I'll be damned, but it is super rare to think of a semi hair metal classic rock artist who had a massive hit after the early 90s. But Mas Tequila was a huge fucking hit.
Yeah.
I don't know about where you're from, but where it was all over rock radio, Mas
Yeah.
Tequila was.
It
So
was, and like Thunderstruck, it plays in arenas still. It's got that intro that's perfect.
totally,
And
totally.
obviously it encourages alcohol sales.
And it encourages people to get fucked up. And in 1999, I was all about getting fucked up. So in fact, on that tour, so I bartended and I got fucked up a lot. But we served now the Cabo Wabo tequila, that the brand that Sammy Hagar started. So a bunch of us that went to the concert had a couple shots of Cabo Wabo before we went. Well, I got the tag off the bottle and it says Sammy Hagar, it's about this big or whatever. So I brought, and I was pretty close to the front, and I kept like, and he's like, oh, and he saw it, and then he's threw me a guitar pick.
Oh,
So
cool.
anyway, yeah. And then so anyway, huge hit. Um, I don't think there was much else for hits. His previous album, Marching to Mars, had the title track was kind of a hit, but there's some filler. Okay, there's some songs that I'm like, Sammy, what are you doing? But I got a couple other songs. Lay Your Hand on Me is a really solid ballad. And then there's a song called High and Dry Again, which has a kick-ass guitar riff. And then a song called The Love, which was actually co-written by Neil Schon
Oh,
from Journey. And if you remember back in the early 80s, there was a band called HSAS,
oh
and it
yeah.
was Hagar, Schon, Aronson, and some other guy, and I can't, but they were all from semi-popular bands.
Yeah.
And they put out, so anyway, that The Love is a real, like, really pop rock, but up tempo, really cool. So anyway, that's my number 9, Sammy Hagar, Red Voodoo.
Awesome. What a good choice. And I think we all probably saw his live shows in that time period. He did great. He had so much fun. He had a great band, and they got out and did smaller venues and got bigger and bigger and drank
Totally.
tequila and partied and threw shots to people. It was great.
And talk about a guy whose vocal skills have stayed the same. I mean, even now, the dude's in his mid 70s, and you'll see shit on YouTube where he performs with all these. He just seems like a really fun guy, but man,
Yeah.
vocally he still sounds great. So,
Yeah. I love
yep.
Sammy.
All right, you're number 8. What do you got?
Yeah, all right. Here, I got a band called Steelhouse Lane. And Steelhouse Lane, they actually had two albums in 98 and 99. And they're very similar. It features Mike Slammer. I'm gonna call him Slammer. It's probably Slammer. It's got one M, but whatever. It sounds dumb. Slammer's cooler.
Yeah.
The first album is Metallic Blue. Lots of ties to like James Christian and Hardline, like that whole like who wrote what song, I'm not sure, probably Mike Slammer, but epic music for such a random time. Addicted is a great song. Dr. Love, you probably know it from the Double Eclipse Hardline album, but Mike Slammer does it on this album, very
Yep.
good. And Best Years of My Life, album number 2 is Slaves of the New World. Son of a Loaded Gun is this really cool, moody mid tempo turnaround. And then they have a song called If Love Should Go. And If Love Should Go was a band called Streets that Mike Slammer was in the early mid 80s with the Kansas singer.
Steve
And that,
Walsh.
yes. And that song, If Love Should Go, I don't know if you've ever heard it, but it is like one of the more catchy songs. It's like a Here I Go Again.
Okay.
I do compare it to that. Um, I don't know how they didn't blow up, but it's an amazing song, and they covered it on this Steelhouse Lane album. But that song sharing, I'm not really sure, and then I'm sure you've heard of Mike Slammer because I mean he's not a household name, but you probably recognize him as the studio guitarist for your boys Warrant.
Yep.
He played on the first 2 Warrant albums, and he's a genius. He's played on everybody's album. If you look at
Yep.
his credits on like heavyharmonies.com,
Yep.
The list is that long.
Yep.
Super talented guy and very creative. So Steelhouse Lane, in case you've never heard of them out there, they have 2 great albums to check out.
So I've heard of Steelhouse Lane. I don't know that I've listened to them, and I don't know that I knew that Mike. I always heard Slammer, but Slammer does sound so, man, even if it is Slammer, you tell everybody it's Slammer. So
Yeah.
um but yeah, I knew about him from, and I think he mainly did the solos on those Warrant albums. They played the rhythm parts, but and I've listened to those Streets albums partially because I dug some Kansas songs and Steve Walsh sang on them. And then
Yeah.
the other reason was because I found out that Mike Slammer was the guitarist on there. And I'm like, fuck, he's played for everybody. So
Yeah.
I don't know that I've listened to him a bunch. And that song what was the name of that song that you said?
If Love Should Go.
Okay, so now I want to go listen to that because yeah, because you make it sound like, but obviously the dude is super talented. And I don't, yeah, but I mean, do you say it came out in like 99?
So the first album is called Metallic Blue. That
Yeah,
was 98.
yeah,
The second album was Slaves of the New World is 99.
yeah,
So instead of choosing one of them, they're back-to-back
yeah,
years. It's there's really not much of a difference. So I just
yep,
wanted to throw out the band.
absolutely.
But yeah, the reason I preach that song, If Love Should Go, they cover it on the second album, the 99 album. And I refer to it being like a Here I Go Again because it's the same artist covering his own song
Yes,
from 15 years prior. And
yep,
there's not a ton of updating, but the singer they have in Steelhouse Lane is really good as well, just like Steve Walsh.
yep,
But it's one of those songs where you go, how did this miss the radar of like
right.
radio?
But sad to say, in 98 and 99, you could release fucking Yesterday by the Beatles and it would drop without a trace.
Totally.
So, which sucks, but all
Yeah.
right, good call. My number 8. So here's a band I don't know a ton about, but I heard about them because it's like once hair metal ended in America, it showed up in fucking Sweden for some
Yeah.
reason.
Yeah.
And there's all these hair metal bands that were coming out of Sweden, and one of them was Hardcore Superstar. And like you're not going to find out a lot about Hardcore Superstar, not like all the magazines were talking about them, but they put out a bunch of albums, and and people know I like punk. They are like the perfect combination of sleaze rock, hard rock, and punk rock. Gritty, razor blade vocals, just punky, short, catchy guitar riffs. And so in 2000, they put in fact, their debut album was in 98. Then they put out an album in 2000, which is the album that I'm talking about. It's called Bad Sneakers and a Pina Colada. So again, you know what you're getting, just sleazy, fast, hard rock. You will never know. Have you ever been around? And then the punk punk rock song and rock and roll star. Like when you see those two song titles, you're like, all right, we might be onto something here. And they put out a ton of albums since. And I don't know. I bet I have 4 of their CDs. So it's, I'm sure there are some that I don't have, but I love new bands. And I love when people in the comments go, hey, here's another new band you should check out. I love that shit. And I usually do go check them out. So anyway, I don't know when I heard about Hardcore Superstar, but they are my cup of tea and they come in at number 8.
Cool, man. Yeah, I couldn't pick them out of a lineup musically. I've heard them, but I don't have their stuff, so I'll definitely have to check those guys out.
All right.
Totally.
We're on to your number 7.
All right, so I'm totally cheating here. Okay, this is Autograph Missing Pieces from 1997, but full disclosure, it was slated to be an Autograph 1989 album release,
Yep.
and it got shelved. But because it's got the 97 stamp on it, I can include it.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. It's kind of the same thing with Lillian Axe.
yeah,
Fields of
totally.
Yesterday. So,
Yeah, yeah, there you go. Perfect. We're even. All right. So the songs here are obviously going to be killer. It's due to the time, 89. It was going to be great, regardless of what Autograph was doing. But I really dig Autograph, and they just kept getting better throughout the years and throughout their releases, I feel like. So this is a lot more polished, less keyboard, a lot more guitar, crunchy guitar. It's a lot closer to loud and clear than it is to like Sign In, Please.
Right.
But this album, you would hear the future Bangalore Choir song, Angel in Black.
Right.
And so that's when it was originally written, and it was given to Bangalore Choir, and they did a hell of a job doing it. I like Bangalore's version a lot better, to be honest.
Yep.
Check out really good songs, Heart Attack, Sanctuary, and Sweet Temptation. It's true to form Autograph, and it'll get stuck in your head.
It wasn't that long ago that I found out that Angel in Black was an Autograph song.
Yeah.
Always assumed it was Bangalore Choir.
Yeah.
So I was probably 11 or 12 when Turn Up the Radio came on, and that was like the biggest song, and like all the radio stations now had a song to use for like their lead-ins. Turn up the radio. I mean, it was all over radio, and you're just like, they had a ton of cool songs. But
Yeah.
for some reason, after that song, they just kind of
I know.
down and down.
Yeah.
But their singer, Steve Plunkett, like he put out a solo album. So it was either late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
And it was solid, but you were just never gonna hear about it. I didn't hear about it till years later. So anyway, I know of that album, and I think I may have listened to it at some point. But Autograph was just always a kind of heavier pop rock band. There were going to be keyboards in it and shit, but it was always catchy, and I just always liked everything they did.
Yeah, and there's a lot of correlation to Keel there. Like Autograph got the Van Halen 1984 tour, like it couldn't be any bigger.
Yep.
Keel got the Slippery When Wet tour, couldn't be any bigger.
Yep.
And they both had Turn Up the Radio, The Right to Rock, and then they just went. And we don't know why, because I love their follow-up albums, and they should have been equally great and on the ascent, and they just descended the rest of the time. Very odd.
Yeah. And there's like Quiet Riot and Twisted Sister both kind of had that exploded, and there's a lot of bands that you can see those correlations. So anyway, Missing Pieces, Autograph, check that shit out. I know I'm going to. All right, my number 7. So here's a band that I'm shocked I have yet to talk about on the channel. I've had many comments go, what? No love for Enough's Enough? And I'm an Enough's Enough fan. I remember the first, like when New Thing, Get High on a New Thing came out. I loved that opening guitar riff. Donnie V, or is it Donnie V or Donnie Vi? Anyway, has a really cool voice. Fly High Michelle was a massive hit. Enough's Enough is not a hard rock band, though. And so I'm going to talk about their 2000 album, 10. And Enough's Enough has put out so many fucking albums. They are still putting out albums, even though Donnie is not in the band. And Chip Zinoff, Chip and Donnie did most of the songwriting. Chip is now fronting the band. It doesn't sound all that different. But 10 came out in 2000. There's a couple of songs that you're like, oh, hey, that's kind of hard rocking. But if you know about Enough's Enough, like Donnie V is hugely influenced by the Beatles and Cheap Trick. And there is a ton of Beatles-esque songs on this album. And I like the Beatles because my mom was a Beatles fan. So I remember hearing shit like from the Beatles when I was younger. And so I always kind of had an affinity for them. But I just want it known, you're not going to get sleazy hard rock. You're going to get mellow pop stuff. But The Beast, the song There Goes My Heart, it's the one song that got a video on this album. It sounds like it could have been a theme song for a TV show. Like if you remember the theme song for Friends, now I don't remember what, but just ultra poppy, catchy, it was all over. Like this sounds like it could be a theme song for a show like Friends.
Huh.
Here, one of the greatest song titles you're gonna hear. Your heart's no good, but I love your face. And then there is a song called Bang On that is one of the really has a really kind of cool, catchy, heavy guitar riff. So one of the heavier songs on the album. Um, I saw Enough's Enough. I don't know if it was this tour, but it was in this late 90s, early 2000s time frame at a small bar in Fargo called Rick's. And it was like a biker bar. And there
Oh,
was probably 100 people there. And they were pretty good, but I remember everybody was pissed. They didn't play Fly High Michelle. And Donnie said that his voice wasn't feeling too good, so he couldn't do it.
oh
Well,
boy.
Chips Enough is a weird cat, and I've met Chips Enough a bunch of times. Well, me and a buddy and a couple other people, he invited, because we hung around and kept trying to talk to him. So he
Yeah.
invited us on their bus
Ah,
afterwards. And then you find he's like was trying to sell us CDs and shit because I'm sure, trying to make some money however they could. It's not like they were raking it in. So
yeah.
anyway, we're on the bus and I'm like, where's Donnie? And he's like, oh, he's in the back. Donnie comes out like 15 minutes later and he is fucked up.
Oh boy.
And I went and talked to him and he was like, looked like he was gonna fall. And most people know Donnie B has had a huge history with like heroin and drugs. So I assumed that after the show he went anyway. I don't want to, but he was off, and
Oh boy.
he said hi to a couple people, and then we never saw him again. So anyway, that's my Enough's Enough story. But 10, a solid album, and you always knew what you were going to get with Enough's Enough. Beatles influenced, Cheap Trick influenced, pop rock, hard rock, but they were great songwriters.
Yeah, I'm guilty of being the first two album guy for them, and that's it. I
Totally.
love them though. That first album, just like you're saying about New Thing, like if you could pull off like hippie glam, dude, more power to you. Like peace signs and John Lennon glasses and weird berets for hats, but you're still wearing like pink. And they had Vic Fox, right?
Yep.
Well, there you go. He probably sold a few albums just by the way he looks.
Oh fuck. That dude is like the hottest chick ever. What's up? But I mean, really, you look and you're like, that is a pretty boy.
Yeah.
But shit. So anyway, yeah. So really, and I'm like, I have a bunch of their stuff because I think I bought a bunch of CDs that night when I was all fucked up. But
Yeah.
I don't spend a lot of time with Enough's Enough.
Yeah.
But every time I put them on, I'm like, geez, it's really solid shit.
Yeah.
All right, we are on to your number 6. What do you got?
All right. Here's where I got Yngwie doing Facing the Animal from 1997. And I chose this one because it has Matt's Levin. And out of all the Yngwie albums from this era, I chose it because of my obsession with Swedish erotica. And he actually also appeared on the 1992 Treat album. I don't know if you remember the band Treat, but
Yep.
they switched singers to Matt's Levin in 92. Solid album. But for 90s stuff, Yngwie, he really delivered for me. His 90s catalog, I think, is amazing. Just like you, I'm not a huge like speed metal, like 1,000 notes per second, neoclassical, they call it type of guy.
Yep.
But he toned it down a lot. And when he does, then he creates typical hard rock songs for me.
Right.
So it was a lot crunchier, kind of bigger sound in the 90s. And kind of like Yngwie, or sorry, like Dio, they don't really waver much. Like you kind of know what you're gonna get from Yngwie for the most part, and just a ton of quality material. The song "Facing the Animal" is really cool. Braveheart, My Resurrection, and Another Time. So I ignored a lot of Yngwie 90s stuff for a long time. And then I I opened the door with Eclipse from 90, and I
Yep.
was like, oh shit, this is good. And so I went on a major kick from like 90 to throughout the 90s, and it's really good shit.
I have not spent much time with Yngwie and or as I said when I was a kid, Yngwie. Yngwie Malmsteen. So like he had what was the big hit he had with Jolyn Turner on vocals?
Heaven Tonight.
Heaven Tonight. So
Yeah.
like I knew that shit, but
Yeah.
I probably don't have any Yngwie albums
Ah,
because everybody, blah, 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 blah,
yeah.
but I know he does have some albums where it's less of that and just more straight ahead good songs. And when he does that, I can get into it. So if he
Yeah.
does that on that album, that makes me want who sings on it?
So this one's Matt's Levin,
Oh, okay,
but
yeah, you said that. Duh.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. But I mean, thinking about his career, you had Jeff Scott Soto,
Yep.
uh, Jolyn Turner, Matt's Levin, Michael Becerra,
Oh
and
yeah, yeah.
that's his favorite.
Yeah.
And another one in there, I can't remember the last name, but he was a Swedish guy, I think. But anyway, really good singers.
Yep.
Quality stuff, dude. Like, I'm really digging it now because for a
Yeah.
long time, again, I listened to Odyssey and I listened to the first one with Jeff Scott Soto, and that was kind of it. But now I kind of dig it all, and I have them all. So whatever.
All right. Hey,
Yeah.
and when Ryan said earlier that he was obsessed with Swedish erotica, I think he meant the band and not that kind of pornography. Okay.
It
So
depends who the star is.
Swedish erotica, the band. All right. Okay. All right. My number 6. Hey, there's a lot of firsts for me here, and I'm glad about that because I didn't do it on purpose, but like sometimes I feel like, man, you got to stop talking about the same albums all the time. Well, that's one good thing about doing an episode like this. But and I'm a big Dokken fan. How in the world have I never talked about a Dokken album is beyond me. I never have. I do know that when 1985 comes up, Under Lock and Key is my favorite Dokken album. That I'll talk about. And I would think that Back for the Attack might make its way somewhere onto 87. If it's not me, whoever, if it's you or if it's Brian, whoever, that's a really solid album too. But in let's in 97, Dokken releases the piece of shit Shadow Life, Dokken's attempt at a grunge album, and it was shit. I just released an episode with Trevor from the Crash Course Metal Show. I released it today is Thursday, June 20th, and we talked about bands that changed their sound and whether it worked or not. And Shadow Life did not work. It was a shadow piece of shit. So they come back in 99 with Erase the Slate. And I like that title because it's like saying, okay, we went off in left field. Let's erase the slate and let's start over. And they went back to back to their signature sound. Now, this is not my favorite Dokken album of all time. It doesn't match up with most of their 80s shit, but some of the stuff on there does. So, and one another cool thing about Erase the Slate is, do you know who played on guitar on that album?
Oh yeah, Red
Red
Beach.
Beach from Winger. So you weren't losing much when you went from George Lynch to Red Beach.
Oh
So
yeah.
the title track, Erase the Slate, is really good. They do a cool cover of the song One, which was originally by Harry Nilsson. And I'll just, if people don't know, it's One is the Lone. Everybody knows that song. It's like from the 60s. Cool cover of that. Voice of the Soul. And then I'll give you one more because this is a really different thing for Dokken. The song is called Crazy Mary Goes Round.
Yeah.
And Mick Brown, the drummer, is the singer on it. And it's pretty fucking good.
Oh yeah.
It's really straight ahead, catchy hard rock. So, excuse me. Dokken goes back to what we wanted from him. And, it wasn't like it was a huge hit. There is definitely some filler, but there's enough solid rock on there for the average Dokken fan to say, hey, I'm on board.
Yeah. I was majorly on board. I bought the album brand new and I fell in love with it. I thought I liked it a lot more than I do then than I do now. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
thought I really, really liked it, and it'd been years since I played it.
Yep.
And like kind of in preparation, I was listening and I was like, maybe I don't love it as much as I thought I did. I like it. And I think that Race the Slate and Crazy Mary Goes Around is my second favorite song. I love that song. I think Mick
Yes.
absolutely kills it.
Yes.
So, I mean, I like the album. I just thought I liked it more.
No, you're exact because like you got Red Beach on guitar and on Erase the Slate, it's like he's doing fucking like not George Lynch, but you're like, okay, this is what I expect from Dokken, fucking ripping hard rock. But then there's a number of songs where you're like, you have Red Beach here. Why are you not kicking out the jams, motherfucker?
I know.
And so they do it a little bit, but again, some filler that, yeah.
Yeah, I think they were looking for another song, Tooth and Nail and Kiss of Death type of opener in
Yep.
Erase the Slate. And they did a hell of a job of it. I thought it was a great song.
Yep. Yep. All right. So that's my number 6. We're on to your number 5.
All right, I got Axel Rudi Pell doing Oceans of Time from 1998. And this is the first album to feature one of the greats, Johnny Gioli from the Kings of 1992, Hardline. Johnny is still with the band, and they released a shit ton of albums from 98 till now, a lot of albums. But listen to the song Carousel, and you'll be hooked. I dig all the albums by this German Ripper. He had Bob Rock and Jeff Scott Soto, but I really like Gioli's voice. And obviously, Axel Rudi Pell likes Gioli's voice as well because he's still with him all these years later. Living on the Wild Side is great. It's like a straight ahead hard rock song. And I say that because there's like 9 and 10-minute songs on this album, which for me, I've never been like the medieval, like extreme Dio, Knights and Dragons and all that shit. I like it, but when it's like a 9-minute song and it's about that stuff, I kind of get a little bit lost. But so there's a few, but there's also a few like Living on the Wild Side and Carousel, which are like straight ahead 80s rippers.
Right.
And a lot like Yngwie and Dio, this dude's discography, I think the first was in 89 through now. Like I just saw they released a brand new album and I checked it out and it's true to form. So everything he puts out is ripping. He was in the German Steeler and his consistency is amazing. So check it out if you don't know about this.
So I know about Axel Rudi Pell, but I was just gonna ask you, like, was he ever in like a band that
Yeah.
people would know? Or
So there was a German Steeler as
okay,
well. And I believe they had a 87 album and it's like an illustrated like monster wolf looking dude on the cover.
okay, I know
I have,
that.
I have the album, the like LP album I got years ago. And anyway, that's a really cool band too. But he went solo like in the 80s and just kept going. So
And has released a ton of fucking albums.
yeah, like if you feel all dried up in your musical album taste out there, like go with Yngwie, go with Axel Rudi, and you're like, shit, I got like
Yeah.
45 albums to listen to now. So
Because I know of him and I know I've listened to some stuff because I was a huge fan of Hardline's Double Eclipse and Johnny
yeah,
Gioli singing on it. So, and I remember liking it. I just haven't given it enough of a chance to be like, all right, yes, I like Axel Rudi Pell.
yeah.
You have to, but like you should, if it, tell me what your favorite of his is, even if it's not now, text it to me so I can start with the best one.
Yeah. Well,
Go from there.
all his singers are good. So it's tough. Like if you want to go straight 80s, you could go to the first one, but it's
Sure.
not Johnny Gioli. But this
Yep.
is a really good Gioli taste of what's to come.
Yes. Okay. All right. Axel Rudi Pell. My number 5. Okay. Um, if you see, I'm a huge Hanoi Rocks fan. And there's a big Hanoi Rocks poster, and there's a big Michael. What the fuck? How do I work my thumbs? Big, there it is. Michael Monroe poster. So I if there's I mean there's so many bands that I wish could have been big. You love a band and you want them to achieve fame and fortune. Hanoi Rocks seemed like they were close until their drummer died in that car crash. Then Michael Monroe's like living in New York and apparently was like broke, and some people said he was living on the street.
Wow.
Finally gets the record deal and it puts out Not Faking It, Dead Jail or Rock and Roll has Axel Rose in the video. People were really convinced that album was going to blow up. I really like that album, but it's not amazing. There's a lot of like filler on that. I was kind of disappointed. So and it did not sell that well. So then he leaves and goes off and regroups, does a couple different bands. I've already talked about Demolition 23. But
Right.
in 96 he put out a solo album and it wasn't released like in America until years later. It's called Peace of Mind. And um this is another one where I hear about it and I'm like, fuck it, because like Lillian Axe, the album I just talked about, Fields of Yesterday, another. I was always looking for DAD releases and Michael Monroe releases, and this was shit that you couldn't unless you special ordered it. So I finally get Peace of Mind, and it's straight up. It's not the punk stuff of Demolition 23. It's straight up kind of sleazy, hard rock. But I have 4 songs that I'm going to give you, but I want you to start with this one because Michael Monroe is an acquired taste vocally. He does not have a pretty voice. But the song Relationship Wrecked, I fucking love that song. So start there. And if you like that song, then go check out Machine Gun Etiquette, which I think is a Dead Boys cover. Dead Boys is an old punk band that started in the late 70s. Then there's a song called Where's the Fire, John? And then they did a cover of the MC5 Kick Out the Jams. Kick out the jams, motherfuckers. So, which is always fun to say on your YouTube channel. So, and there's some filler in there, but I'm telling you that Relationship Wrecked still regularly makes my playlist. I love talking about Michael Monroe and Hanoi Rocks, so that's why it comes in at number 5.
Nice. I'll have to check those out. Never heard it.
Yep. Start with Relationship Wrecked.
I will. That's a cool title.
All right. Yeah, it really is. All right.
Yeah.
You're number 4.
So here's where I got a band called Velocity, and the album is called Impact, and it's from 1997. Now, the singer is David Victor. He is most recent a current member of Boston. He did the Rockstar movie pathway to get into Boston with the sorry.
Uh-oh.
Can you hear that?
I can hear that.
Okay. Hold on a second. I'm gonna decline that. Sorry about that. That was a FaceTime coming in. So anyway, David Victor did the Rockstar movie path of getting into Boston. It seems like he was singing on YouTube and singing on stage in a tribute band, and then he became a member. But most recently, he was in a band called Boss Sticks, and it was Boston and Sticks tribute band. Right. But that aside, he's got a great solo album from 91, but this album is very melodic hard rock, and I don't know how it came out in 97. I feel like this was 92, but no one's telling me that, and it was released in 97, but all signs point to it being released and written in 97. Guy's got an amazing voice. The album's got this huge, catchy Trickster, huge Def Leppard chorus thing going on all through and throughout. Pat Torpey from Mr. Big played drums. Songs to check out right away. The first song is called You Don't Amaze Me. Riot going on. Love is Dangerous. I mean, you'd be fooled. If you put this on for someone, they'd say, who the fuck is that? Never heard this shit before. And it must be from 90 to 92. But the album is called Velocity. The band's called Velocity. The album is called Impact.
Okay, shit. Man, you're really
good.
You're throwing me for some loops here. Which is awesome. And I'm not afraid to be like, shit, I have never heard of that. So
I don't even remember where I heard it. I have the CD, but I heard it somewhere first. And then I bought the CD and I was like, has this been forever?
Yeah.
And I looked high and low to make sure I wasn't missing something that it wasn't really an 80s or 90s, early 90s release. But
Right.
as far as I can tell, it's 97.
All right, man. Okay. You're
Yeah.
giving me some new shit to listen to, and I'm sure people out there too, because if I don't fucking know it, they can't know it either. No, I'm
Nah,
kidding.
not allowed.
I'm kidding. All right. On to my number 4. Okay. Another band that I've just shocked hasn't somehow come out of my mouth. I'm maybe somebody else has talked about them, but I have never mentioned the band W.A.S.P for some reason. And W.A.S.P is right up my fucking alley with their gritty, sleazy, disgusting, greasy, grimy hard rock. So,
Yeah.
um, so I the album is Hell Dorado from 1999, and it kind of reminds me of what happened with Dokken in 97 when Dokken put out Shadow Life. W.A.S.P put out an album called KFD. Now I'm not shitting on KFD because my buddy Trevor from the Crash Course Metal Show just talked about KFD when we talked about bands that changed their sound, and he liked it. It went kind of industrial.
Yeah.
In 99, for whatever reason, W.A.S.P goes, Blackie goes, hey, let's go back and let's just start ripping people's faces off with hard rock. And he does that with Hell Dorado. So shit. The title track, Hell Dorado, Damnation Angels. I fucking love that song. It's got this moody, kind of slower intro, and then it just builds up, and you're like, holy shit, here we go. Uh, here's a song title for you. Don't Cry, Just Suck. And then the next one is Dirty Balls. And then I got 2 more for you. Cocaine Cowboys and Saturday Night Cockfight. So if you wonder what you're getting into, you are getting fucking sleazy hard rock with those kind of song titles. And it is rip roaring, just what you want from W.A.S.P.
Sounds very politically correct. I like it.
Yeah.
I'm Metal Mike got me into this one because I had ignored it just due to the year it came out.
Yep.
So I went back to it and I thought that's pretty damn good. This is true to form stuff. So I can see why it's up there on your list.
Right. And you know, it got easy to do in the late 90s. Yeah. I started to get used to some of the bands that I liked putting out disappointing albums. So you kind of like, fuck, I'm not gonna get that. You know, because back then you had to buy the CD,
Yeah.
or you weren't gonna hear it. So, you know, you're like, am I gonna spend $15 on this CD when I don't know? And a lot of bands have been disappointing me lately. So
Right.
that's a lot of these albums I didn't get until years later when it, you know, you start having a little bit more money and, you know,
Yeah.
so, but back then, yeah, it was like, shit, I was broke. I was like, fuck, I ain't going out and buying Hell Dorado until I know it's Hell Dorado good.
That's
So,
right.
all right, we are on to your number 3.
All right. Got AC/DC doing Stiff Upper Lip in 2000. Coming in at number 3. It's kind of sad. My last AC/DC album that I genuinely was so pumped and excited, memorized the whole thing, cranked the whole thing, and tell you all the songs. It's been years since I've had one like that, but my local radio station played like a national broadcast of Angus and Brian sitting down with some big name DJ, and they debuted every song. So they'd play the song, and then Angus and Brian would talk about it, and it was so exciting and killer to listen to. And I just sat there and I taped it to a cassette, and I wrote down every song title, and I still have it. So someday I'll have a tape player again, and I'll listen to it because I guarantee you it's not out there. But it's great. What an innocent time. Oddly, this is out of the several times I've seen AC/DC, this is my favorite performance. So like you'd think that's a very random year for them to like be really cranking it out and sounding good, but the set list was great and they sounded really cool. And kind of like Ball Breaker, this is the last younger looking AC/DC. Even in 2000, you started to go, oh, Angus, I don't know. But some songs I really like is Give It Up, Meltdown, Satellite Blues, and Damned. It's a very much one of those AC/DC albums that people accuse them where, you know, every album and every song sound exactly the same.
Yep.
This is kind of the one that's like
Yeah.
that, but it's good.
And I like, obviously I'm with you. I'm a huge AC/DC fan. I do think that when the title track Stiff Upper Lip came out, there was a point where I was like, hey, keep doing the same music. You
Yeah.
know, I love but I did start to think like the lyrics, you guys are in your 50s or whatever. I'm getting older, like me, she was born with a stiff upper lip. Yeah, there was a point where I think it was that album where I'm like, maybe we should try something different lyrically than the sex shit. But anyway, it's AC/DC. You can't go wrong with it. And I'm an AC/DC completist. So, there's not an AC/DC album that's ever come out where I didn't go buy it the day it came out. And I always will.
Yeah.
So, all right. My number two. My number three, shit. My number three, man, that out of all the albums on this list, and maybe all of the albums by hair metal bands that came out after the glory days, this is probably the one that had me most jacked. It's Kiss, Psycho Circus. Now, it only comes in at number three, so that should be a kind of a warning. In 96, they get back out, their reunion, or they get back together, their reunion tour sells out fucking everywhere, kisses on every magazine, and then you get the word, yes, we are putting out a new album with the original lineup. And I'm like, here we go. Ran the fucking media play the day it came out, and the opening single, the title track, Psycho Circus, fucking rules. I love that song. I really do. Now, we find out later on that Ace and Peter barely played on it, and they each get only one song, which, whatever, that's probably par for the course. And there is a lot of filler on it, but there are 5 songs that I really like, and some of them are kind of cheesy. And I will say, this is Kiss. They were like, fuck it. In 98, we're doing a hair metal album. This sounds like legit 80s Kiss. It wasn't revenge era Kiss, it was 80s Kiss. So you got the title track. I Pledge Allegiance to the State of Rock and Roll is a fucking ripper. Thumbs up, buddy. Into the Void is Ace's song, and it's what you expect from Ace, another fucking space song. And geez, he always has to sing about this space shit. Anyway, You Wanted the Best, which is the first song where each member got a part of the verse, and it's talking about how they would fight, but in the end they would come back and give the fans what they wanted. Kind of a cool and outrageous kick-ass guitar riff. And then a really cheesy pop song called Raise Your Glasses, but it's the kind of song you can envision being played at sports arenas, like the perfect song for, oh, your team just won the championship. Here's Kiss's Raise Your Glasses on. It's that kind of song. So a lot of filler, not nearly what we expected, but not as bad as a lot of people made it out to be. And it only went gold. I remember thinking, man, maybe this will be the album that puts Kiss go 3, 4, 5 times platinum. It went gold. So kind of disappointing, but some solid stuff on it. Comes in at number 3.
Yeah, like you, I remember the buzz around this thing. It was out there everywhere, and the radio station was playing the shit out of Psycho Circus. And then, to me, not being a huge Kiss guy, it fell off. And I was like, what happened to that album? It was like everybody was preaching it, and it fell off after that song, it seemed like.
You're exactly right. I don't even know what the second single was, but I remember hearing like all the Kiss fans were trying to get MTV to play the shit out of Kiss, and whoever was in charge then. And I think they played Psycho Circus some, but he was like, nope, Kiss is an old band and we're not doing that shit anymore. So MTV bailed on it. And after Psycho Circus, nothing else was on the radio. So it kind of died.
Yeah.
But kind of disappointing. But anyway, it's got some good shit. So if you've never listened to it, check it out. And with that, we are on to your number 2.
Okay, here's where I got Mötley doing New Tattoo in 2000.
Ooh,
And
and when he said Mötley Crüe for a second, didn't everyone think, oh my God, he's going with Generation Swine? What the fuck are you doing?
my first note is this should have been where Generation Swine was. And I want to give a giant to the people out there that think this album sucks, because I think this album rips. And I almost made it number 1 for that fact right there. And I think this is exactly where Mötley should be. They stayed in their lane big time. It's true to form. I love Randy Castillo on this album. There's no lame Tommy influence doing that bullshit he was doing. He's a great drummer. Obviously, I love Mötley. I love Tommy. But in the 90s and 2000s, Tommy was out there.
Oh.
So, like I said, this album's either loved or hated by fans. I think it's right where they should be. You got songs like Fake, New Tattoo. I liked Hell on High Heels,
Yep.
Hollywood Ending, and then Punched in the Teeth by Love is, so that's one of those classic Crüe songs. And so I used to get those Metal Edge magazines that were strictly dedicated to Mötley Crüe.
Yep.
So in 91 or 2, there was a Mötley Crüe Metal Edge, and Nikki was reading off the songs that were going to appear on a 1992 Vince Neil Mötley Crüe album, and he referred to Punched in the Teeth. And I remember that, and I still have the magazine. So when this album came out, I was like freshly reading those magazines. I was getting them on eBay, 8 years after they were put out.
Yep.
And I went, oh, cheaters, I know this song. This was supposed to be from 92. And it sounds very 92, and it's a killer song. It's probably my favorite on the album. So New Tattoo, I like a lot. The tour was cool, and I don't think it should be hated.
This goes right in line with Dokken and W.A.S.P. They all put out shit albums in 97, and then Mötley Crüe with Generation Swine. And then they all 3, after those albums, were like, okay, we're going to go back and try to give the fans what they want. Because
Yeah.
Mötley Crüe, I mean, when you've heard Hell on High Heels, you're like, well, number 1, the title, Hell on High Heels. And then you heard that guitar riff, and I was like, who, finally they're giving us something that fans who grew up with Mötley Crüe, they were trying to give us what we wanted. And I just revisited that album, and I don't think I gave it the time of day, probably because of when it came out, and I was like, fuck, it's 2000. So I just revisited it, and yes, it's much better than I remember thinking it was when I first bought it. And maybe that's because now, the older you get and the farther away you get from it, the more you crave, please, try to give us something that is reminiscent of your glory days. We want to relive that. So anyway, I need to listen to it a little bit more, but it was them getting back on track, with something that the old school fans wanted. All right, we are on to my number 2. Okay. I probably shit on this album a little bit in the past, because it's from probably the band I am most known for on this channel. It's Warrant. And the album is 1996's Belly to Belly. And I have talked up Dog Eat Dog. I've talked up Ultraphobic. And usually when I've mentioned Belly to Belly, it's just to say how dark it was. And, I've even said listening to Belly sounds like listening to somebody who's telling you that they're thinking about committing suicide. It is that dark. That being said, it is not my favorite Warrant album, but there is a lot of very good songs. There is a lot of filler. There is some shit. But anytime you have an album that give to me, I always think when I buy a new CD or a new album, I'm hoping it gives me 4 good songs. I remember listening to John Kolodner, who was a big A&R rep for a lot of big bands, Aerosmith and others. He's like, look, I understand that an artist needs to, they need to do their art, they need to grow and all that. But he's like, I need 4 songs that I can potentially get on radio. So I've just always kept, I want 4 good songs. If you give me 1 good song, I feel like you kind of screwed me over. Belly to Belly has a lot of good songs. So I'll list them and they are fucking dark. In the end, there's nothing. Just saying that title, like, um, feels good. Sounds kind of positive, right? But no, in the song it says feels good, feeling this bad. AYM, which stands for Angry Young Man, but that opening guitar riff of that song will rip your face off. And then there's 2 ballads, Letter to a Friend, which has an exploding chorus. That chorus, I worship that chorus. Then there's a song called Room with a View that is so dark. But again, there's a part where the electric, it's acoustic. There's a part where the electric guitars kick in and it just gives me goosebumps. So this album came out at a time where my life wasn't that great. Obviously, Jani Lane's wasn't that great. There are a bunch of songs where I'm like, what are you guys doing? There's a song called Coffee House, for shit's sake. That just sounds like Seattle. But I saw them a ton on this tour, and they were awesome. Jani Lane was awesome, but alcohol was starting to play a much bigger role on stage. He'd always kind of fucked around and had some drinks here and there, but many more shots of tequila. So anyway, I've gone through all that, but I've never really talked a lot about this album, and for probably good reason. But there is some great shit on it, so it does come in at number 2.
Did Janie write all the songs?
Yeah.
And how was the tour? Did they balance the set list?
You know what? Actually, they played a lot. Okay, when they headlined, they played a lot of old stuff, but they played a lot of new stuff. But on this tour, they were on the label CMC.
Yeah.
CMC had, yeah, and you did an episode with Metal Mike about CMC, and they had like Slaughter and all these other bands. Dokken was on CMC for a while. Well, Alice Cooper ended up on CMC, so a bunch of these bands went out on tour with Alice Cooper. Slaughter, Alice Cooper, Warrant, and then there was at least one more, another one. Maybe it was Dokken. And I remember, and I saw it, and then there was also an article about it in Metal Edge, and they were saying how all the other bands just were like, fuck the new albums, we'll just old shit. But Warrant was the one band that was like, they played like 5 new songs, and they only had like a 40-minute set.
Yeah.
They played the biggest hits, Uncle Tom's Cabin, Cherry Pie. So anyway, that was a long answer to your question. They did play quite a bit of this shit on tour.
Yeah, that's like seeing a Def Leppard on the Slang tour, and it was so odd. It was almost awkward.
Yep.
Having Stage Fright and Rock of Ages next to the Slang songs. It was like even you guys playing it is weird. Like this so different. So yeah, I was just curious. I've never gotten into the album. As big of a Warrant fan as I am, and as big of a Janie fan I am. I've heard it, of course. I've listened to it.
Yep.
It turned me off like crazy. So what was this song? Was it Letter to a Friend with the kick in?
Yep. Letter to a Friend. And even that is a little awkward. It's kind of got this different kind of guitar, but then when the chorus kicks in, it's unreal. But it's not your typical Warrant ballad.
Yeah. Got it. Okay.
And shit. When people tell me they hate the album, I'm like, I get it. And
Yeah.
maybe I am giving it such a chance because I'm such a big fan and because
Yeah.
I'm such a big Janie fan. But yeah, it's still awkward, like how dark. In the end, there's nothing, but it
Yeah.
is kind of catchy. So I
Yeah.
do like these songs, but very rarely do I go revisit this album. I'm more apt to go to Ultraphobic or Dog Eat Dog. But again, if you've never heard it, hey, I would say give those songs that I said a chance and see what you think.
Cool.
All right. That puts us at number one. I can't
Yeah.
wait to
Okay.
hear what your number one is.
Yeah. And speaking of bands that had the transitional album, here's where I have Def Leppard doing Euphoria in 1999. And like they were back big time in this one. It's
Yep.
the post slang Def Leppard, but just like the Crüe, they they made New Tattoo, and then these guys made Euphoria. It was true to form. They kicked it off with Demolition Man. It's like a really inclusive track, a little bit of everything from Def Leppard kind of sprinkled in on that one. Promises is the big single, the vintage Def Leppard thing. They People knew they were back when Promises was released, and they were really happy about
Yep.
that. All Night is like a interesting R&B hip hop attempt, but the chorus is really good. It kind of makes sense. Paper Sun is a gem. I love that song. It's probably my favorite on the album. To Be in Live and Guilty are good mid tempos, and it's no hysteria, but it's harking back to where they should have been. And at the time, I thought these guys were getting up there in age, just
Yeah.
like Motley, and here we are, 25 years later, and they're still going. So I love this album. I think it's a perfect harking back with a little modern blend. They didn't really piss anybody off on this one.
Right. It was shocking how big of a hit Promises was. Thing
Yeah,
was all over radio in Fargo. And
yeah,
and I saw that tour and it was kick ass. And I remember thinking like, this back then I'm thinking at that time Def Leppard is getting kind of old,
exactly.
and now they're still doing it. But I remember at that time, the song that I couldn't listen to enough of Def Leppard was "Let It Go" from the High and Dry album.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and they played it, and I'm like, there's no way he can sing fucking "Let It Go" when he gets those higher notes, and he
Oh yeah.
killed it. Anyway, yes, that album, it just like a lot of the albums that we were talking about, they tried something different, went grunge or whatever or alternative, and then they were like, all right, we need to go back to what it is that we do. And
Yeah.
Promises, a song you didn't mention that I love is "Back in Your Face."
Oh yeah. That's a good
Got
one.
like that kick-ass like drum kind of I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's catchy as shit. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was awesome to see Def Leppard go back to giving us, that catchy pop rock that we wanted.
Yeah. And with the IA at the end,
Yep.
Paranoia, Hysteria, and Euphoria. You can't miss when you have the IA at the end.
And I remember that being a big selling point, like in the advertisements, the third in the series of IA albums. Like suddenly, if Def Leppard has an album that ends in IA, it is going to be fucking epic, and it was really fucking epic. But I just remember thinking that was kind of weird. Like, oh, it ends in IA, it's probably going to kick ass, like it should be. So anyway, but yeah, really, really, really cool album, and
Yeah.
and great to see Def Leppard have a hit in fucking,
Yeah.
was it 99 or 2000 that came out?
99.
99. So yes. All right, good call. Okay. Now you had Def Leppard. Here's another band that was not Def Leppard size, but really big in the 80s and then went, down for a while in the 90s, released a couple albums, and just like Def Leppard in 1999, they had much smaller but a minor hit. The band is Great White. The album is Can't Get There From Here. And I remember being shocked that the song Rollin' Stoned was on radio in Fargo, North Dakota. And that is a kick-ass, catchy song. So I'll be honest. I had that CD. I liked the song Rolling Stoned, but I barely gave that album the time of day.
Mhm.
So when we talked about doing this episode, I'm like, fuck, they had a hit. I'm gonna go listen to that and I'm gonna see what I may have missed because
Yeah.
guilty of doing that a lot. But because I used to buy so many CDs, listen to it once, put it in the collection.
Yeah.
So a couple days ago, I'm like, all right, here we go. Rolling Stoned, fucking just as great as I remembered it. Then there's a song called Saint Lorraine that is just a foot stomping boogie tune. It
Huh.
kicks ass. Um, there's a song called Freedom Song that is very mid-tempo. Another Silent Night is more mid-tempo. And then there's a ballad called In the Tradition that is fucking awesome. I
Huh.
just about shit when I was listening to that. I'm like, because I'm a ballad guy, how did I not know that Def Leppard had a ballad that is as cool as this? And it's really different, not your traditional 80s hair metal ballad. So I was just surprised that there were as many great and Great White is another band that this will be the first time I have talked about them on this channel. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, have yet to bring them up. So
Right.
they, when a lot of bands were struggling, they put out one of my favorite albums from their catalog with Can't Get There From Here.
I have it and I neglected it.
Yep.
I think I stopped at Hooked for a long time. And then I came back into the band when Terry Egus from XYZ got in there. And I was like, oh, I love that shit. I'll check it out. And I really liked their second album with him. I went back to this because people were talking about the gem that came out in the late 90s by Great White. And I was like, what? Like, I have that. I've never even
Yep.
paid attention to it because of the year. And then I checked it out and I was like, fuck, it ain't that bad. It's pretty true to form, but
Yep.
I couldn't pick it out again. Like, I don't remember the songs, but now I'll go back and I'll check it out.
Yeah, I mean, legitimately, I was surprised because, and I'm sure I probably have a ton of CDs that I did that with. Listen to
Yeah.
it once,
Yeah.
put them back in the collection. So
Yeah.
I'm always like, how many great songs are out there that I'm missing?
I
And
know.
so you need to go back and revisit those. Anyway,
I'll
can't
do
get
it.
there are some songs that I was like, but the ones that I liked, I really freaking liked them. So it's my number one.
Nice. I like it.
All right, man. Hey, I appreciate you being on and sharing your top 10. It's always a blast having you, brother.
Thanks, man. You too. It was great. I liked it.
Awesome. Hey, which ones did we miss? 1996 to 2000. Now, hey, do you want to go through some honorable mentions?
Sure. Yeah. I
Let's
got
do
a few.
some honorable mentions.
Yeah. Dave Menichetti from Y&T and Y&T Endangered Species. Scorpions, Pure Instinct, Fair Warning, Lion's Heart, Firehouse, Goddard, Dio. Night Ranger had that album, Mojo. What's it called again? Something with the Mojo.
Yes.
I can't.
Feeding off the mojo.
Yeah, that one. And it's got Gary Moon singing,
Yeah.
and that dude rips. He's got a killer solo album, and Gary Moon, dude, it's like an '89 album released in '97. It's really good. Rudi Sambora had one. I really liked the Motley Best of. They had the songs "Bitter Pill" and "Enslaved."
Yep.
They had two songs in '98 that were really cool
Yep.
in that Primal Scream kind of like updated Motley, but good.
Yep.
And then I had Sammy and Jaded Heart and Jugulator by Priest. And I think that's it.
Okay. I had Stage Dolls Dig. Slaughter Back to Reality, which I don't know how much I love that album, but it was Slaughter. They had an album out. So Rat had the self-titled album that wasn't bad.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
LA Guns, Shrinking Violet. Jackal, Cut the Crap. Dirty Looks, Slave to the Machine. It was close to making my list. And you said it was too modern, and it is, but Danger Danger had two albums during that period, For the Hard Way Return of the Great Gildersleeves. There were a couple songs that I legitimately enjoyed, so I put it on. Alice Cooper, Brutal Planet, and then there was Bon Jovi was huge with "It's My Life" on that Crush album. There was another song I liked on that album called "Just Older." I was kind of out of Bon Jovi by that time, but anyway, I put them on the honorable mentions just because they're fucking Bon Jovi and they were huge in the 80s. So, and
Yeah.
then Aerosmith had Nine Lives. I don't remember liking it all that much, but I thought I'd point it out.
Very
So,
good.
with that, which ones did we miss? Which ones are we full of shit on? Feel free to let us know in the comments. Speaking of comments, would love it if you like and subscribe. You have the opportunity to be a member. Whether you do that or not, I just appreciate you being here. Until the next video comes out, my name is Anthony. They call me the Guru. Take care.